Greetings, Rob McCrae here, erstwhile known as Clan McCrae 9, and in this video we're going to be looking at the new 2.0 version of Imperium Romanvm 2, and specifically we're going to be looking at setting up the major power forms and the mobilization forms that are associated with that major power. So what I'm going to do is we're going to pick a scenario. In this case it's going to be scenario 7, the crisis of the second triumvirate, and I'm going to open up power form number 2 because I'm going to be doing Octavian's setup. He's the second major power listed in the scenario. Sextus Pompeius is the first major power listed, but we're going to skip over that for now because Octavian is just a little bit more interesting in terms of his setup characteristics. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to right click on scenarios, and you'll see that when you do, you get the entire list of all the scenarios that can possibly be created from the original scenario list in the game box. So we decided we're going to do number 7. If for some reason you wanted to create a new scenario that's not listed in the game box, you could always just leave that blank and then go to the pieces here and pull down a text label, and you could create your own label there for your scenario name. Major power, we're going to click on that and we're going to look for Octavian. Again, all of the major powers from the scenarios are listed here, and there's Octavian right there. So according to the scenario, Octavian is color purple. You see all the colors are listed there. And combat efficiency rating of A, which is the best combat efficiency rating in the game set. Octavian is obviously a Roman faction. You can see that it lists all of the possible faction types as well. So we have the blue section up here completely filled out now. We're going to move on next to the provinces that are controlled by Octavian and assigning their tax values. So the first province listed is Aquitania. I'll try to get the pronunciations as close as possible. Feel free to chuckle at the ones that I mess up. Next is Baetica. Next is Cisalpina. Galatia. Germania Inferior. And Germania Superior as well. I think those always go together in the scenarios. Every time I've built a scenario, they always are. Illyricum. Italia. Lugdunensis. Lusitania. Narbonensis. And Tarraconensis. Okay, so that's all the province names. Next, we're going to go in and assign the tax value. So Aquitania is a 3. And there's two ways that you can do the numeric counters. You can right click and select up, down, right, or left, and they'll add 1 or subtract 1, or add 10 and write 10. My preferred method is just a left click, highlight the number, and then use the up, down, left, right buttons on the keyboard. So Aquitania, we're going to set to 3. Baetica to 6. Cisalpina 10. I'm just going to right click and it'll set it to 10. Galicia 2. Germania Inferior is 0, and Superior is 0 as well. Illyricum is 2. Italia is 15. Lugdunensis is 3. Narbonensis is 3 as well. Oh, I got off one. Lusitania is also 3. Okay, so that one's set right, even though I said it wrong. Narbonensis is 4. And Tarraconensis is 7. Go to 10, then subtract 3. And so we've got all the provinces added, as we said, and their tax values added. If you'll note, you've probably been seeing that all along, the total tax value here is going to be a sum of everything that's in these two columns. So if you have more provinces than this column, you're obviously going to add on here and add their tax values. And this, again, is going to be the sum of everything that you put in here. And then going to the right here, the treasury value. Octavian has a treasury value or treasury level starting out of 9. And notice that there's a separate counter here that represents the 0.5 decimal area. I'm going to leave it on 0, but I just wanted to show you that if during the game you have a half value, and that it comes up occasionally depending on which period you're in, whether or not the militia cost a half point for purchase. And then the morale level is 80. So I'm going to use the right arrow button, click 8 times. And so now we have the second section completed. So what we're going to do next is look at the scenario for any minor powers that are associated with Octavian. Egyptus belongs to Antony. Cappadocia belongs to Antony. Gallic rebels, controlled by Antony. And Judea. Oh, I missed one. Octavian's Gallic allies. So there we go. So Octavian has one set of minor powers that start out at the beginning of the game assigned to him. And there they are, Octavian's Gallic allies. And the scenario rules state that they are the color tan. So I'm going to set the color. And they have a morale value of 75. And they have a replacement rate of 0. So if they had a number there other than 0, we would change that there. So obviously I'm going to leave that at 0. And there we go. There's Octavian's Gallic allies set up as a minor power. Just looking real quick over the scenario rules, see if there's anything else that I need to add. I believe that's going to be everything. So there's the power form completely set up. So here's where some of the new features of the 2.0 version of the module come into play. So I'm going to open up the associated mobilization form. So notice that because he's second in the scenario listing after Sextus Pompeius, Octavian uses power form number 2. So we're going to open up mobilization form number 2. And the first thing that we're going to notice is that the treasury level matches the treasury level that we set. So whatever number you set in the power form, I'm going to raise this or lower this and raise it again just to show you. As I change the treasury level in the power form, the treasury level changes at the same time. So now we're going to set up the mobilization form. It's a little bit tricky on a single screen. I have 3 screens on my computer here, which makes it really convenient to do things like this. But many of you may not have 2 or 3 screens, so this is pretty much how you would be having to do it anyway, if that's the case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look in the scenario instructions again and look for the period number, which I'm pretty sure is a 2. Yes, it's period 2. So I'm going to click here on period 2 mobilization chart. And I'm going to start here at the bottom and then work our way up because it starts out simpler here, then it gets more complex as we go upwards. So I'm just going to kind of ease us into this. So the first thing we're going to look at is the cost of baggage train. And since this is scenario 7, we'll be looking at this column right here. So the cost of a baggage train in this scenario is 8. So I'm going to go back to my mobilization form, go down here to the bottom, cost per baggage, and we decided that that was 8 for the instructions. Next is the cost of fort level. So cost of 2 for fort level. And we're going to assign the maximum fort level for this scenario, which is a 7. So that just means that the highest level that you can build to in this scenario is a 7 level fort. Okay, so that's everything in this section. The section right above it is the 412 units that can be allotted per provinces. So provinces are either going to fit into a mobilization area or they're going to be listed down here. So this is the one area of the game that I find the hardest to interpret. I wish that it was just a little bit more clean cut as to what goes where, when, and how. You'll get to see a little bit of this as we start assigning the mobilization areas from the list of provinces here. But in short, some of these provinces will be listed in the major mobilization areas that we'll pull up the chart for. So here are our mobilization areas available for period 2. Some of these, as I said, will fit neatly over here, and others will be a little bit more difficult, but we'll tackle that here in just a moment when we get to it. But the ones that do not fit over here into mobilization areas, you can allot 1 412 unit for that province per taxation and mobilization phase in the game turns. So we'll keep that in mind as we're building our mobilization areas. So let's look up here at the top now, and these are the units that are available for period 2. So to give you the redundant but obverse side of that statement, if a unit exists in the game box but it's not listed here, you cannot purchase that. So we're going to start here and start assigning the values here. So on the mobilization form, I'm going to left click. Notice how when I left click, it highlights the little icons here. So I'm going to highlight this icon and I'm going to adjust it until it says 2010. The second one was 1610. Go back to the scenario instructions or the period mobilization chart. The next column is already set at the 412s. And the next one are the 616s, which I'm going to scroll downward on it because I know I get there faster that way. These things loop as you're clicking through them. And then the next one we have the 1830 ships, which always start out at half value. The next column is going to be not used because we've run out of available unit types up here. And then next is militia. The militia always has to be done from this column. So before I set that, I just want to explain that the reason that militia has to be used in this column is once if militia is listed, it'll always be the rightmost one in the period mobilization chart. But for the module, you'll see that it's set up a little bit differently, and I can set it to a value of 1 or a value of 0.5. And we'll come back to that later, and I'll set that to 0.5 temporarily so you can see how that affects the treasury level. And then the next thing that we have are the costs. So the 2010s for scenario 7 have a cost of 7. The 1610s a cost of 6. 412s a cost of 2. 616s a cost of 4. And the 1830s a cost of 18. So now we're going to attempt to set up our mobilization areas, and I'm going to show you where we're getting this information from. So on the period 2 mobilization chart, these are the possible mobilization areas. Notice that as we change the chart to show other mobilization periods, you see not only the possible units that are available changes, but the mobilization areas change as well. So let's go back to period 2. And our first province over here is Aquitania. So the way we're going to approach this, the first thing is we're going to look into the mobilization areas to see if Aquitania exists as a mobilization area. So it does not. So the next thing that we would do is look at the mobilization area chart notes. Had a little trouble finding it there, but it's the bottom to the right. In this case, it changes place depending on how wide you have the screen there. So we're looking for Aquitania. So Aquitania belongs to Gallia and Germania. So we're going to go back to a period 2, and we see that Gallia and Germania is listed on the period 2 mobilization chart. So we're going to list that as a mobilization area. Just be aware that the other major powers may also have provinces that are within Gallia and Germania, and if that's the case, they would both have Gallia and Germania listed in their mobilization areas and would have to share the number of units that are available between them. Next we have Baetica. Baetica does not exist as a mobilization area. So we're going to go back to the mobilization chart notes, and we're going to look to see if Baetica belongs to any of the listed mobilization areas, and we see that Baetica belongs to Hispania. So let's go back to our mobilization chart, and Hispania does exist as a mobilization area in period 2. So we are going to add that. So far it's fairly easy. Not too far there. Okay, Hispania. Next we have Cisalpina. And Cisalpina does exist as its own mobilization area. Even though it's not listed individually. So what we can do is blank that out, grab a text label, trying to get it clear down here, then bring that over here. Actually, I'm going to delete that and get a larger text label. There we go. And so now we have Cisalpina listed there. Next we have Galicia. Galicia does not appear as a standalone mobilization area, but it is also part of Hispania, so no problem. We already have Hispania listed, so nothing to do there. Next is Germania Inferior and Germania Superior, which are going to fit into Gallia and Germania. You can see there's inferior and there's superior. And we already have Gallia and Germania listed, so nothing to do there. Next is Illyricum. And we are looking for Illyricum to show up anywhere in one of the major areas. I will go back and look at the period 2 area just to make sure that it's not a standalone area listed. Illyricum, it is not. So what we will do here then, because Illyricum does not fit into one of the mobilization areas neatly, we'll have to list it as a separate province. Now, you don't actually have to put Illyricum down here right now. You would actually probably more correctly wait until you decided to spend a 412 unit there to list it, but I'm going to go ahead and list it for now so that you can see where these provinces would be listed if you purchased a 412 unit during the mobilization period phase. Okay, so our next province over here is Italia, and Italia is its own mobilization area. So I'm going to add that. And then next we have Lugdunensis. Lugdunensis does not list here as a mobilization area, but it does list under Gallia and Germania. So we already had that covered under Gallia and Germania. Lusitania, also lists under Hispania. I already knew that one, and it is not listed separately here. So it's covered under Hispania here. Narbonensis and Tarraconensis. Tarraconensis exists under Hispania, and Narbonensis exists under Gallia and Germania. So all of the provinces now either fit into one of the larger mobilization areas, or in the case of Illyricum, individually as a separate province. So we're going to go back to the period 2 mobilization chart. So now that we have all of our mobilization areas listed, we're going to look at their associated combat efficiency rating. Gallia and Germania is an A. Hispania is an A. Cisalpina is an A. And Italia is going to be an A2, I'm sure. There it is. So all of Octavian's available units are going to be CER of 8, which is the highest efficiency rating. So obviously that's going to be one of his strengths as a major power. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to fill in how many of each unit type is available. So these are the unit types, and these are the mobilization areas. So you cross-reference left and then up, or you could go down and then back to the left. But the point is that you're cross-referencing, for instance, Italia, 1610s, that would be their associated cross-reference cell. So going back to Gallia and Germania, I'm just going to kind of cheat through the numbers here. So I see I have 1 2010, 1610, 1, 412s are 4, and 616s are 3. So 1, 1, 4, 3. So what I'm doing is I'm setting the allowed column here, and I'll come back and explain that more in depth. So 1, 1, and obviously I lost my train of thought. 1, 1, 4, 3. Okay, so again, just want to kind of bring that back home here. So for Gallia and Germania, you're allowed to purchase 1 2010 per taxation and mobilization phase, 1 1610, 1 412 unit, and this would be the 412 without the parentheses for Gallia and Germania, and 1 616 without the parentheses. So those are slightly different unit types. These are archers, these are archers, these are not. Okay, so the next mobilization area is Hispania. So it's blank, then 2 and 2. Blank, 2 and 2. Cisalpina, 1 2 1 blank 1. 1 2 1 blank 1. And Italia, 2 2 2 blank 3. 2 2 2 blank and then 3. And I believe that that is going to be everything as far as setup for Octavian at the beginning of the scenario. And so I'm going to go ahead and end the video here, and then I'm going to create a separate video on how the power form and the mobilization form coordinate between each other, and how you make purchases, and how you pretty much go through the entire taxation and mobilization phase. So signing off for now. Until next time, this is Clan McCray 9, and we will see you later.